At the root of our addictions is this need or a desire to feel something good in the present moment. And of course, we all want to feel good. We all want to avoid or heal our pain. We don't want to sort of walk around sort of carrying these burdens within us. And addiction often spirals out when a way of coping with our pain, turns into a form of dependency and something that in fact causes us more pain in the future. There is a short-term relief, but that relief is an illusion. It's an illusion of a solution because it's sort of, plastering over and sort of pulling wool over your eyes, and you're not really fully conscious of the full ramifications of what you're doing when you are just in the moment indulging. Because that moment of indulgence is just a reaction in this present. You want to, cling at anything that will sort of allow you to avoid yourself, to avoid confronting the sort of the deeper feelings within you or the repressed emotions or repressed traumas. Addiction is a convenient solution, but it isn't a solution, of course. And so the only remedy out of addiction is one that is psychological and yet also spiritual, because it relates to how aware we are of ourselves and how aware we are of all the various things going on in our body, things going on in our mind, our sort of repressed fears, our repressed resentments, our repressed pains, and how aware we are of them, and also, and also how aware we are of the various coping strategies that we use in order to distract ourselves from sort of addressing those sorts of things. And when I reflect on my own sort of experiences with addiction, and as I sort of try and understand and do shadow work on myself to sort of decipher why did I do these sorts of things, what was I trying to get out of it, and at what point did I become trapped. And like I said, what I got out of those things was a form of relief. I wanted to feel the sense of well-being in the present moment. Yeah, I got caught in this cycle of, depending on these external methods, these various substances, these various, activities, these ways of distracting. I was trying to do stuff in order to feel good, And I think that's often a habit that our culture has. We obsess so much about doing stuff. About, I feel bad, I need to do something to fill that sort of inner void, whether it be by buying something or taking a various substance or, I don't know, going out and having sex or whatever, We constantly try and do stuff. But of course, the more spiritual solution to these inner torments, it's not one of doing. It's not one of going out into the world and trying to sort of clutch at something to sort of fill our void. It's by looking at our void, going inwards rather than outwards. And when we go inwards, immediately we confront everything that we've been avoiding. And for many people, that is scary. That's a reason we avoid things, because when we confront the truth of our problems, our ego gets rattled, you see. Our ego wishes to believe that everything is fine, everything is perfect, there is nothing wrong with you. Particularly an ego that is fragile. And of course, when we go inwards and we sort of start seriously and honestly looking at ourselves and contemplating the various patterns that are sort of constituting our being, it can be quite tormenting, because we come to contact all the things that we're doing that in fact are, disgracing ourselves, all the things that we're doing that we would regret later in a more sober state. We see the all the mistakes that we're making. And when we see all the mistakes that we're making, our ego reflexively wants to turn away and be like, I don't want to deal with this shit. And, that's that consists of the sort of the precursor of just going back into your addictive, distractive habit, in order to avoid doing that sort of work. But of course, when you are stuck in this cycle of distraction, you are in this loop. And it's a loop that keeps you from honestly evolving. Your life becomes this constant cycle of, you feel the pain and you remedy it with the addiction, and then the addiction becomes this even deeper fixation in your brain. And slowly and progressively, that fixation consumes everything of value and meaning in your life. And this is what happens when you become wholly and completely addicted. I've heard addiction as this sort of described as a sort of reciprocal narrowing of your being. Because the more that you indulge, there's a feedback loop, and that indulgence creates a deeper narrowing, and the deeper narrowing means that you're more likely to indulge again. And so you're spiraling down and down and down and down. And that is why addiction is so difficult to get out of, because it's sort of, the more you become addicted, the less likely, obviously, you are to, step out of that sort of loop. So then this raises the question of, how do we step out of that loop? Stepping out of that loop requires a sort of a radical shift in our perception and our awareness, such that we come to value our life and our liberty more than the addiction itself. When we're in the fit of addiction, it's because the choices that we are making, we're valuing that immediate gratification more than our health and our mind. It's a distortion of values, right? And for me, what really caused me to shift was that the costs of my body and my health and my mind were becoming more and more and more apparent, that I simply could not ignore it anymore. And that reached a point where even the gratification, whereas before the gratification came without much cost, I was able to ignore the problems. But when the problems became unignorable, I reached a point where I was like, okay, I'm going down these two different paths. And, one path leads inevitably to my self-destruction. And, I can just continue doing the same thing I'm doing over and over again, but I know that that's where it's going to lead to. And so a deep part of me, perhaps my higher self, chose otherwise. It chose to prioritize my health, my well-being, even though that in the moment it was fucking difficult. I had to deal with sort of weeks and months of, a severe depression, a severe lack of feeling, because, I've been hyperstimulating my mind and my body with drugs for so long, to the point where my quote unquote normal was synthetically enhanced. And when all those synthetic enhancements of dopamine and serotonin and stuff, I could no longer use those sorts of things, naturally I had to deal with the sort of this neurochemical depression. And it was difficult, but a part of me always knew and believed in my body's capacity to regenerate itself. And I think that's a very important belief to have. Often our beliefs shape the reality that we, exist into. If we believe that we cannot heal, that it's going to severely handicap us. And the truth is that our body is remarkable, it has a remarkable intelligence. And if we believe and focus upon that intelligence, focus on that ability to heal, in fact, it's almost as though your cells are listening to your thoughts, And, of course, these things take time. You have to have the patience and the courage to sit with a shit reality in the knowledge that it isn't going to be shit forever. And I think that's a good place to sort of sign off. And I hope that's been useful to all of you people out there. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and goodbye.